So at this point, we'll transition over to the tutorial regarding how to submit your forecast to the NEON Ecological Forecast Challenge. And that's going to be led by Anna Spiers, who's joining us from University of Colorado at Boulder. Anna, if you're talking, you are muted.
Thanks. All right, getting everything set up. Thanks, Alexi. That was really cool to see a data assimilation workflow and also to learn about the glue package, particularly for me. So now we're on the home stretch. We have our forecast and we're going to submit to the challenge. So in this tutorial, I'll step through how to register a team, what you would do before you build a forecast, hopefully. How to generate a forecast file, generate an associated metadata file, submit these files, and then visualize your submission. And the cyber infrastructure for FE has been designed alongside this first year of the forecasting challenge. So a lot of these helper tools to submit your forecast are actively in development. So any feedback you have is definitely welcome from the community. Okay, first, you want to register a team, which you do in this Qualtrics survey. So whoever registers your team is the team contact. You develop a team name, you specify which theme you're submitting to, and so forth. I'm going to use the dummy team name of Wiggly Astons because out here in Colorado, the Astons are starting to leaf out in the subalpine. You can register up to 40 team members. And in the registration process, you read this participation agreement, which essentially says you're agreeing that to your forecast being visible on a shiny dashboard. Publications must acknowledge FE and NSF, and your results may potentially be published and authorship will be extended to you on an opt-in basis. You may and are in fact encouraged to submit multiple models, but as it's set up right now, you need to submit, you have to register a team for each model that you submit. So you're welcome to submit multiple models to the same theme or models to other themes, but you need to register a team for each model, and that'll probably change next year. When you register, you're set up with the FERCN Slack and GitHub. This is to encourage communication across teams to learn from each other. And teams are allowed to join the challenge after the start date of each theme, because there are multiple deadlines to submit forecasts, but only the forecasts that are submitted by the deadline will be officially scored. And for each theme, there's a recorded Q&A for on the FE YouTube channel. So check those out if you're joining a theme late. And the Beetle Community Challenge is the last one to debut, and its Q&A session should be coming up in June. So another resource, I think Whitney posted this in the chat earlier. This is the Forecasting Challenge Overview webpage. It has a lot of detailed instructions, particularly instructions to submit. So definitely refer to this webpage. Your forecast can be submitted as a CSV or net CDF file, and there are instructions for each format for submission. Teams may submit an incomplete forecast. Like for the Beetle Challenge, for example, you submit for every forecast for every terrestrial site. If you don't feel like doing that, we encourage you to submit the null forecast results just so that it doesn't hurt your score too much by having NAs for your forecast. The forecast must be submitted in a really particular format to pass a set of internal checks that allow the forecast to be visualized on the Shiny dashboard and to be evaluated in the scoring process. So we have Alexi's forecast in a CSV format. So we'll load that, and we're only using 2 packages. The Neon forecast package, which is actively in development. This is being designed by the FERCN team, or members of the FERCN team, and good old dplyr. So to submit a forecast, again, either as a CSV or a NetCDF, as a CSV, you'll export a data frame as a CSV, and you need specific columns filled for each theme. And since we're using phonology, these are the columns that need to be filled in to pass the internal checks. So we load the forecast data frame that we have right now. We need a few more columns filled out to before we can submit the forecast. So let's do that. So we have our time, our site, our ensemble. The ensemble column can alternatively be a statistic column if you're not using ensembles. The statistic column would be specifying the mean and standard deviation of your forecast. Forecast value of 1 specifies a forecast rather than a hindcast. Data assimilation is just 0, and then your forecast values. Nice. So we're going to save this CSV following this format: team name, year, month, day, team name ID. So for phonology, we're using the glue package as Alexi introduced me to, but we're going to write the CSV file with phonology, the date of the forecast, and our team name ID with Elastin. Before we submit our forecast, we can validate whether it will pass those internal checks using this forecast output validator from the Neon forecast package. And it goes through a series of checks. We can't see it all printed out on this slide, but our forecast file passes the internal checks. So that's great. So when we do submit it, our forecast, the forecast will be available on the Our Shiny app the day after submission. And once the data becomes available for the corresponding targets file, you can score your forecast yourself using this score function again from the Neon forecast package. So we're using past dates, so we get a score. We're using the continuous ranked probability score, which considers accuracy and precision of a forecast, and 0 is the best score that you can get. So once we have our forecast looking good in a CSV, then we need to generate metadata. So the metadata format instructions are described again in this challenge overview webpage in bloody detail. It's a really good resource. The metadata file will be an XML file with the same naming structure as your forecast file. And FERCN created a metadata standard built off of the ecological metadata language. You can learn a lot more about that in this link. Which is saved as an XML file. And teams are highly encouraged to publicly archive their code and workflows. And you can specify where you're publicly storing your workflows in your metadata file. The Neon forecast package has 2 helper functions to produce your metadata. So the first function, create model metadata, creates a YAML file that has the same name as your forecast file, and you manually enter your forecast details. And then the second function, write model metadata, converts that YAML to an XML file for submission. So let's go over to R to see. So we have our forecast. Our forecast file goes to where the forecast file is saved. So we're going to create the model metadata. It's going to happen. Going to run it. And it automatically generates your YAML. So your YAML is an easy to read way to store data. So you're going to fill out your team name, the names of each of your team members, and so on. There's a lot of information that you can fill in, and there's instructions detailing what information to fill in and what to leave blank. So this describes all the metadata for your forecast. And once you've edited your YAML file, you save it. And you use that second write metadata YAML function to save that YAML file as an XML to be ready for submission. So now we have our forecast file and our metadata XML file. And we're going to use the submit function from Neon Forecast. At the moment, the submission instructions in the challenge overview use different instructions than the Neon Forecast submit function, but I highly recommend you use this function rather than the out-of-date instructions. I'll try to get that, talk to people to get that updated soon. So we have our metadata XML file path. And then once you're ready to submit, I couldn't do it interactively in a markdown. So you specify your forecast file and your metadata file. And then it'll ask me if I'm actually serious. And then I'll say yes. And that's it. Okay, there's an error, but we're going to ignore that. So the day after submitting, you'll be able to see results in the Shiny app dashboard, which is super cool. So you can choose the different forecast themes. You can visualize the forecasts, and then you can also see scores of the different teams compared against each other. My computer's being a little slow to respond. There's a number of resources to help you in your submission process. Again, that challenge overview webpage, the Neon Forecast package, still under development, so definitely give feedback. There's a really detailed metadata standard. If metadata really interests you, you can read through all 20 pages of that if you want. And then the Shiny dashboard. If you have questions while you're submitting, definitely check that challenge overview webpage. It has an FAQ section as a first pass. If you don't have your question answered yet, try Slack so that other teams can see your question and the answers. We definitely want to encourage learning from each other. And if you still can't get your question answered, you can contact Quinn, or actually this might be Quinn's email, or you can email this. And thank you.